Good evening, everyone. This work session of the Board of Trustees of the Spring Independent School District is officially called to order on Thursday, December 3rd, 2020. The time is now 6:09 p.m. Board trustees present are Winfred Adams Jr., Kelly Hodges, Deborah Denson, Justine Durant, Jana Gonzalez, Dawn Davis, and myself, Rhonda Newhouse. I would like to ask everyone to turn off or silence their cell phones or electronic devices at this time. Thank you. The first order of business tonight is a review of the minutes from previous meetings. Does any trustee have any changes or corrections to the minutes of the November 5th, 2020 board work session or the November 10th, 2020 regular meeting? Hearing none, these items will be submitted as a part of the consent agenda at the December 8th, 2020 Board of Trustees regular meeting. We will now hear from our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Rodney Watson.
Thank you, President Newhouse and other trustees. Good evening. I hope each of you all had a blessed Thanksgiving and had time to at least spend some time with your immediate families in your homes. We have kicked back off after the Thanksgiving break. We did have an opportunity to go through and do some deep cleaning or sanitizing in our buildings over the week. It was interesting. If you drove by the buildings during this past week, you would have seen a lot of cars here. We had construction still going on and people were still working. And so I do want to just continue to say a very special thank you to all of the staff in the district that continue to keep pushing. Regardless of what's happening in and outside of the building and with their own personal families, the team has really been focused and working hard to make sure that we're maintaining the cleanliness and the safety for our students. So I do want to go on the record to say a very special thank you to all of the chiefs in the department, but also all of the individuals that are actually out there doing all the work. I'm very, very proud of them. As you can see, we have a very full agenda tonight. I'm going to save the majority of my comments for Tuesday, but I do want to make sure you all receive the email. We want to challenge Klein and Aldi. We are in a competition, a toy drive for the Northwest Assistance Ministries. And so we want to challenge those districts to see if they can get more toys than we can. So we're encouraging you all on Tuesday to bring a toy out. I think Ms. Westbrooks has a very competitive spirit. Julie said that she was going to get 40 toys with her department, and Ann said, I'll double it. We're going to get 80. And so you all know Ms. Westbrooks. And so we are really trying to make sure that the families in our community that NAM does a phenomenal job supporting have toys for the Christmas holidays. And so if you all have those, bring those on Tuesday and we'll get ready to take those down to the box and get them ready for our students. And so without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump into our agenda. And so I'll turn it back over to you, Ms. Newhouse.
Thank you, Dr. Watson. And yes, the board wishes everyone a opportunity to put spring first. We always accept a good challenge. We've had a wonderful Thanksgiving, a good, safe and happy Thanksgiving. We were glad to see everyone back safe and sound. And now we're ready to work on this challenge. So I'm sure the board, Dr. Watson, will support you wholeheartedly in this challenge to make spring first place. And our students and community will be very proud. So thank you. Our next item is agenda participation. This item allows members of the public an opportunity to speak on the agenda items before these items are considered by the board. Mr. Brinkley, do we have anyone registered to speak under agenda participation?
No, Madam President, we do not.
Okay, thank you. We will continue then with our next item. I'd like to recognize our Executive Chief of District Operations, Mark Miranda.
Hi, President Newhouse, Dr. Watson, members of the board. We're happy to present this evening the 2021-2022 Education Planning Guides. You'll find these, I believe, in your yellow folder, and you should have access to that. And I'm going to turn it over in just a second to Kachar Bradford, but I wanted to let you know that there was a cross-functional committee. I was really proud of the fact that we were able to get several different people together from different groups, including campuses and other, to be able to put together our education planning guides for this coming school year. You'll see in the presentation that she's going to deliver that we've done some updates concerning CTE pathways. Those pathways were revised based on updates from the Texas Education Agency, and also really our desire to have our students complete their pathways. We do a really good job at many of our campuses. Once she graduates, just about everybody in their pathway, and our desire is to streamline those pathways so that we can be even more effective and focused in some of those CTE areas. And so you will see that as we go through the education planning guide presentation. So with that, I will turn it over to Kachara for a brief update.
Yes, good evening, President Newhouse, Dr. Watson, and members of the board. I hope you all can see my screen. I should be sharing the presentation.
Yes.
Okay. And we will go over, as you know, this is an annual update where we do revise both our middle school and our high school education planning guide. And so this is definitely a cross-functional team, but we really are looking for the future, and it's very future focused. We like to bring this to you all early in December so that our teams can begin with master scheduling and really planning for the fall of the 2021-2022 school year. So this really helps us lay out all of the courses that are available to our students in both middle school and high school for the upcoming school year. Our goal when updating the education planning guide is always to follow really our strategic plan to strengthen best-in-class specialized programs, looking specifically at our career pathways, really being laser focused. That's a lot of the refinement that we did this year is around our pathways and our endorsements, looking at our dual credit offerings and making sure we have those crosswalks with our college partners, as well as our pre-advanced placement and our advanced placement courses. And we do have an update this year on those, as well as staying current with all of TA graduation, as well as our accountability requirements. And then we do look specifically at the future job trends to see what we need to really hone in on as far as our pathways and our endorsements, and as well as student interest and just what's, I mentioned earlier, those college crosswalks. So to ensure that our dual credit students have the course offerings so that they can be successful, especially for campuses like early college, high school. So when we have this actually is our, what they refer to as our swim lanes, but our updated EPG process. Last year in 2019, a cross-functional team began working under the leadership of our Chief of Communications and Innovation, Ms. Tiffany Dunn Oldfield, who really helped us streamline the work. So you'll see where it starts in the academic office. It moves over to campus principals in September and October. Then the curriculum instruction team looks at what's being proposed, looks at our scope and sequences, goes through the curriculum, TA requirements. September through December, we pass it off to our operations team, October, November, to really look at those, to approve any new courses. And then our data management compliance team also has a chance to look at all of the state requirements in different fields, and we bring it to publish. And so it's always a very well put together, very professional looking document. And just want to thank all the teams that work through this process. We then push it out to our counselors, our principals, our school leaders, all of our departments, and our families, students included, to begin planning for the upcoming school year and developing those master schedules. So this year, because of COVID-19, we weren't able to meet in person. We usually book the boardroom. We have chart paper and markers, and we're all working together. But you'll see that this is our collaborative process virtually. So we shared the documents using Google Docs so everyone could see them. And then we were able to highlight areas where there were questions or concerns or updates, and team members from multiple departments were able to then add questions, recommendations. You'll see special ed, you'll see curriculum and instruction, our health and PE. So multiple lenses looked at it, and we're able to then tag them remotely, keeping everyone socially distanced, but still able to work through a collaborative process. This is a list of all of the cross-functional team members. It is a task force that comes together, everyone from curriculum and instruction to our student support services. Our technology team works hand in hand with us, as well as our campus leaders at the secondary level specifically, all of our school leaders, assistant superintendents, as well as partnering with our innovation and equity team to ensure that we really are offering courses that will help our students reach their goals, both pre-K through 12th grade, but then also post-secondary. We do keep in mind that part of our work in creating our empowered learning model is that we have this profile of a learner. And so this is what we think about, that these are the skills we want our students to practice every day in their classes, that they aren't just leaving us being able to do these skills, but that they are developing these skills all throughout their educational career. So really, we're specifically looking at, if this is the profile of a learner, what courses do we need to offer, and what does our classroom environment need to look like to be able to maximize students that can communicate, adapt, reflect, and especially think critically. We do have as our baseline is that foundation high school program. And we are definitely following, all of the guidelines, but it is a program that connects us where we are able to tap into student interests. And so last year, with everything going on in the world, 1,927 students graduated with an endorsement in one of these 5 areas. So it really does allow students to develop additional skills that are both preparing them for college, career, as well as the military. So in addition to completing their general coursework, they also have the opportunity to complete an endorsement in one of these 5 areas. This year, we have some specific updates when we look at our high school level. We really are going deeper with our students in their CTE pathways and revising them based on some updates that began last year with TEA, as well as streamlining our courses to really be very intentional on our students following that coherent sequence of courses and meeting all of those requirements for their endorsements. So that's one of our goals, is just really streamlining our pathways and our endorsements. We also have, as you all heard at our last board meeting, our Dekaney P-TECH. And so that P-TECH pathway was added for Dekaney High School so that students now will have the opportunity to earn an associate's degree through our partnership with Lone Star College. And so those course offerings are being included in our EPG, as well as looking at the Westfield Barbering pathway. So that is we began designing it and fleshing it out over the last few years, and now it's all ready to go. So we have that whole progression available to students at Westfield High School. We do make sure that our education planning guide meets all of the curriculum guidelines for Chapter 74. So we look at the high school requirements, we look at the foundation high school program, all of the endorsements, and then any performance acknowledgements that students can get for outstanding performance. And that does go on their transcript that they can carry with them to a junior college, a university, or onto their career. So as we mentioned, we have a middle school education planning guide. And we really use that to help our 5th graders begin to think about the courses that they're interested in middle school, as well as so that's informing them about the courses, helping their parents look at, what PVA classes are they interested in choir or in band. And so that's how we look at our elementary to middle school transition. From middle school to high school, when students are in middle school, they can review the courses that are offered in the foundation program as they're looking ahead to from 8th grade to 9th grade. They can select the endorsement that best fits them when they're thinking about what they would be interested in, and also just recognizing those college requirements. So that does start in 8th grade. They all have where they're looking at their career choices and they're taking their first CTE class for many of our students. In high school, our education planning guide does follow where students can make those choices where they're looking at, what they're interested in, what the job market looks like. So students are really planning their 4-year pathway using the education planning guide and then thinking through, we always like to say, beginning with the end in mind. So students are thinking through what life after high school might look like. And we work with students as well as families in this work. At the middle school level, some of the updates that we have are specifically around our specialty schools offering innovative courses. So we're really excited about the groundwork that's being done and being laid. Dr. Hinojosa and her team with Dr. Wynn as well, working in partnership with our campuses to launch our innovative schools. So we have the Bailey School for Performing and Visual Arts. And so these are some of the new courses that will be offered in addition to all of the performing and visual arts that they already have, specifically for the specialty school of the performing and visual arts. So we're just imagining it to be like FAME, you know, where students are really diving deeply into theater, into their visual arts, or to dance, even looking at the academic connection with creative writing. So very excited about that work that's happening, as well as the School for International Studies at BAML, which we're excited at BAML Middle School. So we looked at the courses that really would help students develop in both language as well as culture, and giving them a world view so that we can have that robust School for International Studies at BAML Middle School. And so really aligning our middle school courses around languages that then could transition into high school. Very excited about the addition of potentially an American Sign Language course. So these courses, you'll see, are being staggered in. So we have some that would begin in the 2021-22 school year, and then the phase-in language approach with moving up from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, then beginning in the 2022-23 school year, with all students having exposure to up to 3 languages. And then there is the Polytechnic Middle School at Clawton, which really looks at a great connection to the P-Tech work that's happening at Decaney High School, but the pathways around animation and video game programming, and you can see some of those courses there, the robotics, the media technology. These are not all the courses that they have, but these are the new courses that have been added to our program of studies. So they already have quite a diverse offering. And so we're adding these in for them specifically around these pathways. The other update I mentioned, that looking at our advanced placement and our pre-AP and AP courses, we are shifting to having our pre-AP courses being listed in our education planning guide as advanced. The College Board is our partner, and they are redesigning their pre-AP program. So in an effort, we will still continue working with them to order and support a lot of our curriculum work. But in the education planning guide, you will see that it is notated from pre-AP, it is now shifted to advanced. So the advanced courses then connect right to the AP courses. So we're just changing that language, and that's going to start again for the 2021-2022 school year. And you'll notice that in both the high school and the middle school education planning guide. So our last step after tonight, we really begin working very heavily with the communications team, Sylvia and Tiffany, to spread the family and community awareness, information sessions, working with schools. Our counselors do a great job of connecting with parents so that our community really knows what's available, that they have an awareness, they have access to the information, and that they really do use this. We all want to use this as a tool for choice and for our students' voice. And I love this picture of these excited kiddos, but for them to really be empowered and their families to really be empowered to make educational decisions. And so this is where they do have a lot of opportunity. We have great specialty schools from early college to Winchie to the Spring Leadership Academy. So really just highlighting all that's available to our families and more that's coming in the upcoming school year with our specialty schools. And so really using our communications platforms to spread the word and to connect with our families. So with that being said, that is the end of the presentation, but we welcome any questions. I also have our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, Dr. Matt Pariseau, with us this evening to answer questions as well.
Ms. Bradford, this is the earliest, since I've been on the board, the years I've been on, this is the earliest that we have received this planning guide for students. And I think that is awesome. That used to be my complaint, is that we waited until February or March to try to schedule students for the following year, when we should be backing it up until December, such that the parents will have the entire Christmas holiday to talk it over with their students. The students will have an opportunity to talk it over with their cousins and friends who've already been in this route. And so this is wonderful seeing this. I hope that it can get out to our community because the pathways that we offer for choice for students is just growing and it's tremendous. And our community needs to know this is available, especially since we have all of these charter schools and private schools here. They need to see the opportunity that their students can receive in a public education right here in their own community. So I commend your task force team. You guys have done a wonderful job. And I'm looking forward to continuing to see more and reading more about the descriptions of these courses. Because as I looked at some of them, I said, oh, I need to know what that course is. Is that way I can slip in and take that course too?
I know, they didn't have these when we were in school.
No, they didn't. So this is wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Madam President, may I? And a video year ago, I was getting ready to say about choices. It's so important that we offer choices, to our parents and give them an option because the charter schools are everywhere. At least we offer choices. My question is this: on one of the slides, you talk about the Westfield barbering pathway. Can you kind of just give me a couple of comments, give the board a couple of comments on that pathway, please? I may have missed something in the past, but that's something new. My first time hearing of it.
Yes,
Westfield.
yes,
Can you talk to me about
definitely.
it?
We
Thank you.
can talk. Yes. So this really came out of just voice of the community and a need and interest from students. And so for, I guess, the past 2 years really, and Dr. Hinojosa worked extensively with it for us to be able to really develop an in-district barbering program and to find a great partner that we could work with to support our students. So initially in the 9th grade year, it's just exposure. They have a lot of the introductory courses. And then as they go through 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, they get into where they're actually doing internships. They're actually working at, cutting hair, barbering. And so that they then have all of the certification during their high school career to be able to go out, day one and work at any local barbershop and cut hair. So it's very exciting for our students. It's hands-on. They do have, their textbooks and their coursework, but they also have their field experiences, and the possibilities are endless for what we can build and expand this to. But it definitely came out of just student voice and the energy around having that available for our students.
Thank you. Now, what's about the other side, the petition and the other side of the picture?
Yes, the cosmetology. So that is an area where I'm sure.
That's definitely be a consideration also. That's the great need also, I think, for our students. Thank you.
Yes.
Very much. I appreciate it.
I want to thank you, Captain Davis, for bringing that up. Ms. Bradford did an excellent job of really describing that. And it's been really interesting because we've heard many of you all say for years regarding barbering used to be in the district, it went away, and we needed it to come back, and the community has really been asking for it. So I also want to ask Dr. Hinojosa, who's working closely with this, can you just give us a brief summary of the work we're doing with Lone Star as the difference of just getting a barber license? This is leading to an associate's degree. Can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Yes, absolutely. And that's the exciting part. I know Ms. Bradford talked about choice and voice for the students. So absolutely, this pathway will allow the students to get their license in barbering, but new and above and beyond for our students and the great partnership that we have with Lone Star North Harris, we have a pathway that will allow the students to secure an Associates of Applied Science degree. And so students coming to this program actually have that choice. They can absolutely secure their license, but they also can end up with that Associates of Applied Science and be prepared with that degree free for them. Those 60 hours that are required of an associate's degree, the students would actually take them here at Westfield and at Lone Star North Harris with no cost to them or their families. So as Dr. Watson says, this has been a great partnership with Lone Star North Harris, and ultimately focusing on not only the career readiness, but also that college readiness, that students and families in our district do have that choice and that voice for them as they prepare for the children's future. Looking at our partnerships, not only with the Barbering different vendors and opportunities here, but also with a larger partner, and those are in negotiations right now. So great plans and opportunities for our families and their students.
And I applaud the fact, I'm sorry. Thank you for that explanation. And I love the fact that you're gonna get an associate. What about state certification? Most barbers have to be state certified.
Absolutely. That's
Absolutely.
part of, Dr. Watson, that's actually part of the license. And of course, the state certification, right? So making sure we're using the state's curriculum, making sure that the teachers, the professors, the instructors are certified to teach those courses and to prepare our students for those exams. So absolutely, our students would be receiving that state certification in barbering, along with completing their 60 hours. And we've done a really good job. I'd have to say Lone Star North Harris has done a really good job in working with our counseling team and our CTE team to map out their courses so that they can take the dual credit courses and graduate both with a high school diploma and their Associates of Applied Science degree.
Did I understand you to say that we are expanding this more broadly in the cosmetology as well, or under?
I think the exciting part of it is this isn't something that Lone Star had. This is something we went to them and asked them to create for us, and they've gone through the whole process for their own state board to get approval for it as well. And so yes, they'll have cosmetology and barbering.
Fantastic. What are we doing different in our different environment and getting the word out and in the opportunity for students to be able to participate in these programs?
I have to tell you, Dr. Watson, may I jump in? And just last night, we had another session with our parents in partnering with our communications team and our IT team. We are doing the virtual, right? We last year had face-to-face sessions with our parents. I think you'll remember we call them the showcase nights, and come and tour our schools. And then we worked with our parents face-to-face to assist them in filling out the applications. Well, now that we've gone virtual, had to think about how do we do this differently? And so our communications team did videos of for each of our 5 schools of choice, not only having the school principal and teachers talk about the program, but actually do a virtual tour of the schools. So we have those videos. And then last night we had a virtual help session, which was really exciting. It was the middle school session. So the middle school teams presented on their programs, of course, showcased the videos. We had this in English and Spanish. We've learned that Zoom has that feature, and using our Spanish teacher out at early college, he did the simultaneously, the same time translations for Spanish. And then they were able to go out into those Zoom breakout rooms where we had staff helping them fill out the applications. And just overnight, we had 58 new applications that came through as a result of that session. We will have another one for just high school, and then we will have another combination session. So just exploring all those different opportunities to reach out to our parents, and then of course working directly with our school counselors They have been amazing. They have copies of the videos, have shared them with the parents, and also our teachers during their enrichment classes are showing the videos to the students so they can also find out about the opportunities at middle school and at high school, and then of course work with their parents to apply online. Has it been a challenge, Ms. Durant? Yes, we've had to think about everything in a different way, and just it's an adaptive challenge that we have, and I think our schools have stepped up to it. I have to say hats off to Dr. Christian Wynn, and then of course our parents that continue to reach out to us so that we may assist them. But a whole campaign, and hopefully you were on Twitter over Thanksgiving break. Our communications department had a Twitter campaign going for our schools of choice every day, getting those little alerts to nudge our parents and inform our community of the great opportunities that Spring ISD has to offer.
I did see the Twitter information. That was great. And I'd also like to see the videos. So.
Oh, yes. Ms. Durant, if you'll go to their websites, every one of the schools, you can come to our school choice website on the main page. Just come to that and you can see all the videos, or you can go to the individual schools and it's the first thing you'll see. Click on it. And you remember the one for Decaney and how beautiful that was. You're going to be pleasantly surprised. Amazing videos for all of our schools of choice.
Thank you.
Winford, did you want to go up? You're next in line here.
Yeah, so the microphones now have our names on them, so you
Yes.
know, I really appreciate that. Just want to say that. So I have a bunch of questions actually, and Dr. Hinojosa, I think, answered some of them. Like I have questions about the distribution of the education planning guides, whether we're distributing hard copies. I know my kids are in these transition phases. And so I know to go to the website and access the EPG. I know how to get to it. I've talked with my kids about using it as a tool to set up graduation plans. I wonder about what the analytics look like for that. Ms. Dunn-Oldfield might be able to say, like how many parents are accessing that, particularly if we don't have wide distribution of this hard copy. And so like, I just rambled a bunch and I want to make sure that I get a question in there. And then you mentioned, Ms. Bradford, that we had about 1,900 students graduate with an endorsement. How does that impact our CCMR domain for accountability purposes, right? If we can recruit more kids or convince more kids to go above the foundation diploma program to seek those endorsements, what's that doing to our accountability rating? And is there something we could be doing using this tool to get more kids and more families doing that?
Excellent question. So this has a direct impact on our CCMR, to your point. So that's one of the things that Mark started off with at the very beginning. Our focus over this next strategic plan and the goals that you all set is we're wanting to shrink the breadth of all the things that we focus on and focus on kids in their pathway and actually completing the pathway. Because we have a lot of pathways and kids sign up for one, they switch and they switch again, and then they don't complete. And that hinders us in terms of our CCMR data. And so our focus is making sure that we counsel kids that fit the pathway that they want to be in. And then we make sure that they actually complete that endorsement and or certification. That's going to help us from an accountability standpoint.
Yeah, no, my kids are struggling with that. I have a child trying to pick a middle school and a child trying to pick a high school, and he thinks he wants to do PTEC. The sort of the challenge is, like, you don't really know what you want to do when you're that young and have all these choices in front of you. So this is, I think, a really good tool for, getting rid of some of the confusion.
Absolutely. And I think to Ms. Bradford's point is when we look at what we're doing at Clawton, because the courses feed into the P-TECH at Decaney, it really gives the kids an opportunity to explore and experiment from 6th, 7th, and 8th, which really then helps them decide, do I want to go to traditional high school, a P-TECH, or do I want to go to Winchie? And they have some background in being able to do that. So we're really trying to connect that to make that better for parents and students to understand.
And I didn't know if to jump into the earlier questions, we can definitely pull the analytics. We get a lot of traffic on the district website, but to talk a little bit about the EPG is this living, breathing document. And I know that some of our board members have looked at educational planning guides in other districts. I do think ours is beautifully done. It's very deep from the content that comes from our academics department, but it's also very nicely laid out too. And we try to make it as user friendly as possible. A lot of work goes into that. And so as you're talking about how we get this out, just to be, we finished it very late nights for almost 2 weeks to finish it. It's hot off of the presses to bring it to the board, and our graphic design here in the communications works very closely with academics. And I know I can see Matt there. He's probably very tired. It's a long process every single year to kind of give birth to this document. One of the really important things is that as we look at analytics on the district website, the EPG is really a tool for campuses to use too. So it's definitely available. It's there on the web, but the best way for the EPG to be used is with our campus personnel, particularly in those transition years, them sharing it. They have a lot of our campuses do a lot of work. They also, if you guys know from communications, a lot of people love district messages, but they love their messages from their own principal too. So on a weekly basis, we send them content for what's called their Some More newsletters. We send them packaged content. And so to the videos that Lupita was mentioning, one of the best ways that we know is that as parents filter information, they love getting that information from their campus. And so we do slice and dice information like this. And as we push to the EPG, is not just pushing it from the district level, but also giving our campuses the tools to get it to their parents in a targeted way is really important too as well. And we'll continue that work too, but we will definitely push it. We want everybody to have access to this document. And as for printed copies, a lot of our campuses, we print copies, and we being our academic side does print copies to have for the district, and our campuses will always provide a printed copy for any family who wants it. And so they're definitely available. If a family says, I do better with print, which I'm one of those people, they can get that copy at their campus.
The Barber Associate Degree Program also caught my eye. I assumed both males and females would be signing up for this because here's little probably personal information you didn't need to know, but before the pandemic, I used to go to a barbershop to have my hair cut because that's where I could get a razor cut that I liked. And there were males and females cutting hair in there. So I think that while we're waiting for the cosmetology, I think we've got a good pathway for both sexes to go for.
Definitely.
I just wanted to reiterate what President Newhouse said. When you were going through these courses, I was thinking, boy, I'd like to take that, and I'd like to take that, and I'd like to take that. You know, if we need a cottage industry at any time, why don't we pull some of these courses out and have adult education in the evening? I'd pay to go. But I've got to compliment you every year on this education planning guide. Every year I go into social media and I try to highlight all of the things that are here. It is just phenomenal to me that you not only have the courses and the preparation you need for future careers and that sort of thing, but you even have the kind of careers that you can go to with these pathways, and the pay, the present median pay. There are times that students, or I have heard parents in the past who say, well, we're just going to quit high school and go get a job and earn some money because I'm not learning what I need to know in high school, and I'm eager to get out and earn money. Well, if you just take a few minutes going through this education planning guide, seeing what an associate's degree can bring you, I was looking at web development here, and the median wage was $67,000, almost $68,000 a year. When I look at welding, the median wage is over $41,000 a year. They're just, you know, if you don't like this courses you're taking right now, believe me, there are lots of choices in Spring ISD. And it amazes me sometimes when I hear statements from the community like, too bad Spring ISD got rid of the automotive program. And I just like sputter. And I say, no, 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 no. Yes, we still have automotive programs, and they're bigger and better than ever. I just, my hat's off to you, Ms. Bradford, and your whole department, and all the people who put their expertise and time into this. Thank you.
Thank you. It's definitely a broad team effort, and Matt's here, and you heard Tiffany talk about her graphics design team with Andy, but also, of course, our CTE team, our counseling team, our just multiple departments really work collaboratively to bring this document to life. And then to be able to publish it. It looks great on the website. You know, it's that flipping book, so it's no longer that static PDF document, but it actually is that, you know, more accessible and easier to read. So thank you so much.
Ms. Bradford, I'm going to take you back a little bit to the old school way of doing this, and also ask you what is the new 2021 way of doing this. I know in the past your counselors have gone into classrooms and presented this in the classrooms to each student in high school. Your 9th grade counselors have gone down to the 8th grade and presented to the 8th grade students, and your 6th grade counselors went down to the 5th grade and presented. I do expect that the counselors will be presenting to students who are on the campus or in the classrooms now, such that Mr. Adams' kids will get some firsthand information with the counselor there at the school. But for the 2021 year now in COVID, with students being virtual, what is the plan? For me, I'm thinking, oh, are our counselors going to be setting appointments with parents virtually to go over this with them one by one, or are they presenting in a group night, like Dr. Hinojosa did, a virtual group meeting? Just what are our plans for presenting this? Because I know it will be a challenge somewhat too. Have we thought about?
Yes, so because of the way our schedules are set up, a lot of our teachers are teaching concurrently. So they have students in their classroom as well as students who are learning virtually. So you might walk into a classroom and every student has their laptop up and they're working in the classroom with their teacher, presenting the information using their own laptop and maybe their projector and their smartboard to see the students at home at the same time. So counselors are still going into classrooms, meeting with the students that are in person and the students that are learning from home at the same time. So if I'm in an eighth grade and I have, 8th period as career, that's my career advisement course, then the counselor would go into that classroom and be able to talk to both of those groups of students. But they're also able to have, similar to what we're doing right now, a Zoom session where the teacher has it projected for the students in the classroom and the students at home also have their computer up during that session, and the counselor is able to Zoom in and talk through students through that way. Technology has, I guess, broadened our horizons, and more parents are participating in sessions that we offer. More teachers are participating because they can do it from anywhere, from their office, from their car. We ask them not, to be safe and keep their hands on the wheel, but even from their car if they're traveling after work, or from their home. So it's a mix of both face-to-face and the virtual sessions, but definitely the counselors, principals are even going down. Our performing and visual arts team is also going out to share the message. So we go out, but we still do maximize technology and ensure that we are, staying safe and practicing all of our precautions. So it's a hybrid model.
Thank you. Thank you. I see that this task force has really worked hard and on this and are prepared for it. So I know our counselors will be excited about it probably as well. And I'm sure your master schedule planner will be ready in March and April and happy about having this. So thank you. Thank you to the task force.
Thank you.
We're going to move the next item around a little bit. If you're looking at your agenda, we're going to move the 2021 budget outlook discussion up on tonight's agenda. So at this time, I'd like to recognize our Chief Financial Officer, Ann Westbrook.
Thank you, President Newhouse. Good evening, members of the board and Dr. Watson. I'm going to share my screen here. So we've had a few conversations over the last several months about some aspects of the budget, but we thought it was a good time to come in and have an official update of where we are with the 2021 budget. And so I'll start here with an excerpt from the comprehensive annual financial report, which was brought to the board at the November board meeting. And not to read it, but to paraphrase, basically we're saying here is that the long-term impact of COVID-19 is going to be felt on our operations and our financial performance for quite some time. A lot of what is happening with COVID-19 is beyond the district's control. And there are lots of areas of uncertainty and things that make predictions and projections even more challenging now than they have been in the past. And a lot of items, a lot of things as far as the impact goes will be hinged upon some decisions that are made at the state level as a part of the legislative session and some other decisions that are made even at the Texas Education Agency. So I wanted to start with that statement because that kind of puts into context some of what we'll hear a little later on. So this slide here is a slide that was a part of the 2020-21 budget presentation that was done at the June budget public hearing. And at that point in time, there was a lot that was unknown. And so this was COVID-19 and the unknown. So we knew there was going to be an impact on our students, an impact on our revenue, and an impact on our expenditures. But at the time, we didn't know exactly what that impact looked like. So we knew there was a potential change or possibility of some changes to our enrollment. We expected some challenges possibly with our average daily attendance. And then of course on the revenue side of things with our property tax collections, with what was going on with the economy across the world, we knew that there would be an impact on our taxpayers. And as they're losing their jobs and things are happening with them personally, it could have an impact on their ability to pay their taxes, could also cause more property value protest because in an effort to lower their tax bills. We knew, and we had already begun working on increasing the amount of technology devices that were available to our students, but we didn't exactly know what all of our needs were, and we were still exploring those needs and exploring what those expenditures would look like. And as far as sanitation and our personal protective equipment costs, we were projecting as best we could, but we knew there would always be something that we didn't quite think about because there's no blueprint for COVID-19. And so that's what the question mark was. There were still some things that we hadn't thought about that we knew we would incur as we got into this budget year. So now there are some things that we know a little bit more about. For starters, with our technology devices, at this point, we've spent $9.4 million on technology devices, and that is including Chromebooks, including hotspots and things of that nature. We do anticipate that through the Coronavirus Relief Fund and other opportunities, possibly through additional funds made available through the CARES Act, we anticipate receiving about $7.4 million in reimbursement. The timing of some of those reimbursements could vary. Some may happen this fiscal year, some may happen towards the end of the fiscal year, possibly next fiscal year. And the other thing to note here is that we have utilized all of the funds that we had available to us because we knew this was a dire need and that it was very time sensitive. So all of the cost there, that 9.4 million, is not all within general funds. Some is in the bond fund, some is in our non-bond capital projects fund, but our total cost is that 9.4 million. In terms of cleaning, sanitation, we've purchased barriers like our plexiglass that we have here with us, and then personal protective equipment that I mentioned earlier. We've spent 1.1, almost $1.2 million to date on those costs. Now, of course, those are recurring costs. We're continuing to replenish because, like I mentioned earlier, when we started the budget process, we didn't know what our burn rate would look like for our PPE, for our sanitation supplies, those sorts of things. So we're continuing to evaluate our levels and we're replenishing as necessary so that we can continue to have ample supplies on our campuses and within our facilities. So just to note, that's the cost to date. That's not necessarily our final cost. Here's a look at our enrollment and our average daily attendance and what we know now. Enrollment is down by over 1,600 students in comparison to the projected enrollment that was used to create our budget estimates and that was used to staff our campuses based upon our current staffing guidelines. The 1,600 student shortage has resulted in an overstaffing of 71 positions. Now that is all positions, all encompassing clerical, teaching staff, et cetera, are all included in that 71 positions that we're technically overstaffed at this point based on our current student enrollment. And then with average daily attendance, of course, that's a direct correlation to enrollment, and that's a component that is used to calculate our state aid. So with what we're seeing right now, we're looking at about a $12 million less in revenue than what we budgeted for. This is a closer look at our enrollment compared to what was projected. So just starting over on the left-hand side, looking at elementary, these numbers are as of November 20th, which is that Friday before we left for the Thanksgiving holiday break. Our projected enrollment at the elementary totaled 17,557 students. Our actual enrollment as of November 20th at the elementary level was 16,373 students. And of course, here you can see what the difference is depending on the campuses. So that's a total under enrollment of just shy of 1,200 students at the elementary level. Then in the middle column at the top is our middle schools. With our middle schools, we projected an enrollment of 8,047 students. On November 20th, we had 7,598 students, so 449 students below our projected enrollment. At the bottom middle column, that's our high school enrollment. And with our high schools, a little different story here. We projected a total enrollment of 9,738 students. We had 9,744. So our enrollments overall across the high schools was right on target. So our total projected enrollment for the 2021 school year, again, which was used for budget projections and used for staffing, was 35,342, which is very much in line with where our enrollment was at the end of the 2019-20 school year. As we were looking at projected enrollment, there was no indication that we would have this much of an impact on our enrollment. As you recall, during the spring semester, there was engagement that needed to be reported to the Texas Education Agency. Throughout the spring semester, we had over 99% of our students that were actively engaged with the schools. They were turning in assignments, they were communicating with our district staff. So we had good indications that our students were fully engaged with us. But what we've seen here is that our actual enrollment is 1,600 students below that projection, which is about 5% less than what was projected. And that's being seen across the nation, across Texas and across the nation. So lots of districts are dealing with much lower enrollment than what was anticipated. And what we're seeing in Springs area is that the lowest enrollment compared to projections is in kindergarten. You can see on that far right-hand column at the top, that's by grade level. So you can, and there's a slight difference between the two. There's different reports that we run, so they're off by 3 students, but that's just rounding in the report. So you can see between pre-K and kindergarten, that's about 637 students between just those 2 grade levels. But of course, with kindergarten having the largest difference between actual and projected. Then we look at 6th grade. 6th grade is 319 students below projections. And then again at 9th grade, where we see 225 students below projected enrollment. So that's where this total of we're still below projected enrollment significantly. We started out a lot higher than this, and I think early on we were telling you all that we're about 2,000 students lower. And so as we've been back on campus, we've seen the enrollment slowly begin to go up, but we're still sitting at about 1,600 students less than what we thought we'd have at this point in time.
Ms. Westbrooks, does that mean that students are just enrolling late? Or where are we picking up the 400 or so kids that we got? Are they enrolling late? And also, I heard some scuttlebutt that charter schools enrollment was off too. So do we know where these kids are?
We do have some information on where some of the students are, and I will be honest with you, one of the first things that we all started looking at was how many students have gone to IDEA. So we do have some leaver information that will show us where some of our students are. And so only 93 students were showing from Spring ISD over to the IDEA charter school this year. But we're seeing charter. There are students that are going over to charters. We have some that are going to neighboring districts, but we see students leave every year. We see leavers every year. They go to our neighboring districts, they go to charter schools. What we don't have this year is that offsetting incoming group of students. And that's been the narrative across the state, is where are the students? They're not showing up somewhere else. And so that's a little perplexing at this point, is where are the students actually, because the leaver data doesn't necessarily bring that into perspective for us.
Just to add on to that just a little bit more. So one of the things we did as superintendents, we all submitted our data to Region 4 because we're trying to find out where the kids are. Well, all of the districts in Region 4 are missing the kids. And so to Ann's point, none of our kids by a large proportion have not gone to another district, which made their numbers come up. All of them are small. What we have seen is larger numbers of kids in very rural areas. Their enrollments have gone up a little bit where there's less kids and less people in the communities and things of that nature. Theirs is going up a little, but across the state, it's almost like what happened to the kids? They disappeared.
So, my first thought was charter school. When I looked at the various campuses where we saw the larger decreases, they're closer to the ones that have recently opened. But a lot of, just 2 questions. Have we thought about how many are now homeschooling? Because we got a lot of people that are homeschooling right now. And then are they taking their kids with them? So some districts are allowing parents that actually work in the district to bring their students with them. And so have we had an opportunity to explore the possibility that that's impacting it as well?
So I agree. I think more kids are homeschooling, but they shouldn't be lost though. You would think like you'd see more engagement with the Texas Virtual School Network if that were the case. And I don't know that that's what's going on.
And so we're continuing to pull data on the leaver codes and finding out where the students are going. And as we get more of that data and more of that information available to us, then we'll certainly share that with the board. But at this point in time, we haven't been able to pinpoint and say, okay, this is where our students are going. And that's the part that's a little challenging for us.
Because what frightens me with not being able to identify them is, are we looking at truancy? And that's scary.
Yeah, we're definitely doing that. Unlike previous years, where we only have one walk to go out and find our kids, we've already had two this year. So they're going out to the schools, they're going out to the homes and knocking on the doors trying to find kids that they can't find.
They're just home.
And they're finding some of them don't even live there anymore.
This is
So-
good information. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So I'll go to our next item to start putting into perspective how some of these unpredicted items are impacting us financially. And so this is a topic that I'm sure you have all heard quite a bit about, and that's the average daily attendance hold harmless provision that's in place. We knew about this as we were developing our budget, and it was something I think that came up within a couple of weeks of us passing our budget. And at the time, we knew that the first 6 weeks of the school year, we would be held harmless for our average daily attendance. Later on, after a lot of communications from districts, there was an additional 6 weeks added to that. So now the hold harmless provision is applicable to the first 6 weeks of the year. And so what that means is that if your average daily attendance is less than the hold harmless projections, then the hold harmless projections will be used for the state aid calculation for funding for the first 6 weeks. One caveat that's in there is that for the third 6 weeks, you must allow on-campus instruction throughout the entire third 6 weeks, which is of little consequence to us because that is what we're doing. The way the hold harmless amount is calculated is it looks at a 3-year average trend comparing the 2017-2018 final average daily attendance to the 2019-20 average daily attendance based upon the first PEIMS submission. And we know PEIMS is the way that we submit all of our data and information to the state. And there's an initial submission, and then there's a resubmission that is the final submission that is typically used for all calculations, that final submission. But for some reason, TEA chose to use the first PEIMS submission, which was not necessarily to Spring's advantage for 2019-20. And then another thing to mention in relation to the 2017-2018 year is that was the year of Hurricane Harvey. Hurricane Harvey took place in August of 2017. So there was also a hold harmless provision that was put in place that year. And it just so happens that the amount that the district was funded based on for 2017-18 was higher than our actual average daily attendance in 2017-18. So our starting point for 2017-18 was a bit higher than what was actually happening. So when you take that higher ADA for 2017-18 and you compare it to the 2019-20 ADA, the difference between the two is that it's 98.3%. And so our hold harmless calculation is calculated at 98.3% of the 2019-20 ADA. And what that means for us is our budget was based upon our enrollment remaining relatively flat, which means our ADA remaining relatively flat and consistent. But the hold harmless provision anticipated that we would have about a 98.3% decrease in our ADA. So even though the hold harmless provision is actually in our favor, it's not what we budgeted for, because we budgeted for flat remaining about the same, but this hold harmless provision is 98.3%. And we'll see a little bit more about what that means in just a moment. The bullet point I want to put here, and I want to talk through, and it'll come up again shortly, is that we're asking that the board continue to advocate alongside administration for a hold harmless provision to be in place for the entire school year, which will allow the district the time to adjust our staffing to our current student enrollment when we get into the 2021-22 budget process. And we've heard some conversations at the state level that said there's no intention to continue paying for students that aren't there. However, we do still have staff that's there and was there anticipating that the students would be there. So this is an opportunity for advocacy here to continue to hold the districts harmless throughout the duration of this fiscal year, of the school year. So I want to show what the numbers look like with all of that put into context. So for our budget, our average daily attendance, which we use, and I'm saying average daily attendance, but this is actually a little bit more complex, and it's called our refined average daily attendance. That's what those numbers actually represent. So I caution you from taking the 32,266 and dividing it by enrollment, because it doesn't work out that nice and neatly. Our attendance for the students that are in the district is about 93 to 94% on any given day. And that's pretty consistent. And the reason I think it's important to say that is because our campus staff has been working very hard to ensure that the students that are here with us and enrolled in the district are remaining engaged on a daily basis. Our synchronous attendance is really good. When we add the asynchronous attendance in there, it does look very similar to a normal year, and that is not easy to accomplish. So I want to make sure that I say that, because our campuses do deserve all the praise for ensuring that our students are remaining engaged with us. So, okay, we'll look at this screen. The budget that we had with those 32,266 ADA is 162.9 million. With what we're seeing with our actual ADA in the first 6 weeks of the year, and utilizing the hold harmless provision for the first 6 weeks, we're anticipating a decrease in our total state aid of 12.2 million compared to what we budgeted for. Now, if we were able to successfully advocate for the hold harmless provision to be in place for the duration of the school year, we would have about 155.2 million in state aid, which would be about $7.7 million less than what we budgeted. So there's about $4.5 million of benefit to the district, which is additional funds that are available to maintain our staffing levels and assist with these unprecedented, unpredictable costs that we're continuing to see.
Ms. Westbrook, I just want to be sure I understand this. So given a best case scenario where in January, there's a vaccine, the numbers improve, and these students that we can't find start to come back, there's no mechanism to adjust the revenue at that point. Do I have that right?
So if all of the stars align and our students do begin to come back in January, and for the third 6 weeks, which is where we'll be during that time period, if they do begin to come back, then if our actual ADA is higher than the hold harmless provision, then we would be able to use that higher average daily attendance in the second semester, if that were to happen. Yes, sir. So the actual that you see here is based upon the reality that we're in right now. Mm-hmm.
I'm hearing projections that widespread vaccinations really won't be available till April. I never have thought of myself as a young person, but apparently I'm too young to get some of the first vaccines. So what a surprise. And I just don't think we better be too optimistic here, though I like to be optimistic.
And let me correct that. With our updated academic calendar, our third 6 weeks actually ends on December 18th. So we'll be in the fourth 6 weeks, which is when our actual enrollment kicks in when we come back from December. I'm still thinking on the last calendar.
And so with that in mind, we're actually looking at a $12 million shortfall from what we originally budgeted.
Yes, ma'am. If there's no
Unless
changes.
we can get our legislators to move on holding us harmless throughout the year. Okay.
Is it the legislators or is it the TEA? that we need to- okay.
Mhm.
Ms. Westbrook's, I don't think this is going to be a single answer solution to this because you have so many factors coming in on this. And as you said, that we can't really determine them right now. But is one of the things we can do, as we did in the past, encourage people to retire early and give them a bonus or that kind of thing?
So as we're going into the 21-22 budget, we are in, we're going to talk about that in just a moment too. We will be looking at adjusting our staffing to our current enrollment. And you're absolutely correct. The more we know, then that allows us to make those adjustments through attrition. And we'll be able to plan better if we do have that information readily available. If we know that a teacher is vacating a position because of retirement or resignation. So this is just a quick look at some of the things that we are doing to mitigate this loss of revenue. The first one is, of course, maximizing any reimbursement opportunities that we have through FEMA and through the coronavirus relief funds. I will tell you, we were working the first couple of days of the Thanksgiving break because the application opened up for one of the reimbursement programs, and the window was from I think it was Friday that we got off through December 1st. And so the faster you get in the queue, the more likely you are to receive the full funding. And so in collaboration with our technology team and with the finance team, we were working and we got our application in right away. So we're taking full advantage of any opportunity we have to get reimbursed for some of the funds that we've expended. With FEMA, I put that there because there is an opportunity, but not very many people are being successful with getting reimbursed through FEMA because a lot of the costs are being considered operating costs, even though we would not have purchased plexiglass had it not been for COVID-19. So I'm not very optimistic about it, but we have applied for the funding. And if we do get some, then that would be great. But right now, what we're seeing is the opportunities are with the coronavirus relief funds. And so we're also hearing that not all districts are utilizing those funds. And so the less districts that apply, the more funds become available for those that are applying. So we may even see some of our opportunities increase as we go through the year. And we're also scrutinizing all of our vacant positions and delaying hiring where appropriate. It's very important to mention here that students come first. That has not changed because we're in a pandemic. So any decisions that are made regarding whether or not we can hold on hiring for a position will absolutely go against the first lever of whether or not it is what's in the best interest of our students. But we are definitely having those conversations, and we're closing vacancies in areas where we have overages, and we're holding on hiring in areas where we can. And then, of course, lastly, evaluating our contracted services. There's always opportunities for efficiencies, and if there's opportunities to save some funds and it makes good financial sense and good sense for the operations of the district, then we'll make decisions on those contracted services as well. So the key takeaways with this discussion are first and foremost that we will adjust our staffing to our current student enrollment as part of the 21-22 budget process. And that's like normal in any year, not just in a pandemic year. If we see that our enrollment is going in a different direction, then we adjust. And right now, the projected enrollment, which is very, very preliminary at this time, is that we're anticipating that we will remain where we are right about now, which is at that 33,700 or so number of students. And then, of course, if more of our students start to come back, then that's excellent and we'll adjust upwards. The tax revenue collections. So in October, you all approved the new tax rate. And so shortly thereafter, we mailed out tax statements, and we have been very busy since then. So we're off to a good start, but we won't really know what that collection rate looks like in comparison to a normal year until probably around January, when those current taxes start to become delinquent. Then we'll know, okay, when January 31st in previous years, are we on target for our collection percentage? So we'll definitely share more information with you as the year goes on and as our tax collections go on, but we're definitely appear to be off to a good start. And I mentioned this earlier, and it bears repeating, that we need you, our Board of Trustees, to stand beside your administrative team in advocating for this hold harmless provision to continue throughout the fiscal year, or excuse me, at least throughout the school year, not just for the first 6 weeks of the year, because our circumstances have not changed. And as has been mentioned here, it's not likely that it'll change much between now and the end of the year. And then as administration, we're going to be even more cautious than we already are with our spending in an effort to control the absolute only thing that we have control over right now, and that is our expenditures.
Ms. Westbrooks, I want to tell you your timing is perfect because the governance committee is developing a very strong legislative advocacy initiative right now. So your timing is just perfect.
Thank you. That's great. Good to
Okay.
hear.
I was just updating our
Okay, all right.
document.
You're going to do it too. The other thing is, I know we don't do everything well in spring. We're all many areas that we want to improve. But let me tell you one place that we have always done absolutely superbly, I think, is being good stewards of taxpayer money. And thank you for helping us get through this with your excellent guidance.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much for that.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Westbrooks?
I don't have a question for Ms. Westbrook, and thank you. But I do have I guess a recommendation. I just want to pass on to my colleagues if I have their support. I'm basing these comments on what I know other districts are doing as being a part of the Taskforce Legislative Committee. Madam President, I would like to recommend, with the support of my colleagues, that the Governance Committee review the possibility of drafting a letter to the TEA to ask and request that we remain harmless for the rest of the year. That's what other districts are doing that I communicate with. We have different meetings throughout the week for our legislative committee, and a couple of districts are doing it. So I'd like to, at least, if I get support enough from my colleagues, to at least ask the legislative committee to consider, but not to the legislation, but to a TEA to request to be held harmless for the remaining part of the school year.
Thank you.
If I can get support from my colleagues on that.
That's I hear you, and that's received. And the governance committee will address that. We are also in the process of preparing to present to you guys another letter in support with our other local school districts, along with the resolution around our legislative priorities. And so we've got the first draft available, and we hope to bring that to you soon. And we'll also include that as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Westbrooks. Okay. We will continue to move on with the agenda for tonight. Our next item is a discussion and possible nomination of a name for the Westfield High School JROTC Center. So at this time, I invite the board to discuss this item. As the board knows, this is a new part of Westfield High School that, as a result of the bond, we have added on, and we have built a JROTC Center for Westfield High School. And we have one at Spring High School, in which it has been named, and we are asking for the possibility of naming the one at Westfield.
Madam President, I'm given to understand that there's some community support for naming the facility after our own Captain Davis.
May I add to this that Captain Davis started the ROTC program there, and it is an award-winning program. Many, many students have gone to academies and distinguish themselves. Sorry. Uh, uh, this is really a phenomenally successful program, and we owe so much to Captain Davis for it.
If I will, I would like to add that I've received numerous letters and phone calls from various community members, students that have graduated from Westfield that have gone on to do professional things, and their support for naming this after Captain Davis.
I would also like to reiterate that Captain Davis actually started that ROTC program, which gave birth to all of our ROTC programs. It was the first one. There are millions and millions of scholarship dollars that have been received by our students as a result of that program, not to mention the leadership skills that they've developed. We've had students that have gone on to West Point and, just made major accomplishments as a result of the program in which he incorporated. I remember standing out at the polls with him during his original campaign, when former students that would come up with even their kids that remembered him and the impact that he made in their lives. And so I would be in full support in moving forward with naming that facility at Westfield after Captain Davis.
And just one additional point, I think, in favor of this is that we did recently name the Spring ISD, the Spring High School JROTC program after the award-winning, highly respected captain over there. And so I think there's some precedent for doing this with a highly accomplished, very well regarded founder of the program there. And, with, God willing, at some point, we'll be doing this for Dekaney as well, when we have a person that does that. So, yeah, I fully support it.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. As you indicated and Dr. Watson indicated, I have also received emails asking about recognizing Captain Davis and naming the facility after him. As you stated, we did name the Spring High School after Captain Boyer there for the award-winning program that they do have now. And so I think it would be quite honorable to recognize Captain Davis at Westfield High School for all of the outstanding accomplishments that he has brought to that program, to Westfield and to Spring Independent School District. So if I'm hearing the consensus of the board, I would like to entertain a motion that the Board of Trustees name the Westfield High School JROTC Center after Captain Donald Davis. Let me ask Donald, do you have a middle name that you would like us to use? I thought it was R, but I wanted to ask. Captain Donald R. Davis. I will repeat. I will now entertain a motion that the Board of Trustees name the Westfield High School JROT Center Captain Donald R. Davis.
Madam President, I move that the Board of Trustees name the Westfield High School JROTC Center after Captain Dr. Donald R. Davis.
Second that.
It has been moved by Kelly Hodges, second by Justine Durant, that the Board of Trustees name the Westfield High School JROTC Center Captain Donald R. Davis. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. The motion carries unanimously.
may I point out for the record, there appears to have been one abstention.
Thank you. I did not notice that. Thank you. We do have one abstention. Captain Davis himself. And Captain Davis, I think it would be okay if you would like to raise your right hand as well. Is that okay? Yeah. Unanimously, yay! No abstentions, it's a unanimous decision. So, thank you, and we will talk to Chief Mark Miranda about where we will go forth with that. Thank you. As we continue for our next item, I'd like to recognize our internal auditor, Patricia Rios.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, superintendent, and cabinet members. Tonight, presenting the internal audit mid-year progress report. But first of all, I wanted to thank you, the audit committee members, for meeting with me, and they're the ones that we go in the detail part and where I can ask for support. So I appreciate your continued support to the internal audit department. So the purpose for this report, progress report, is just to provide you the information on the assurance in services, the consulting, and other activities of our department. Now, the audit committee already, I provided our new remote internal audit process, a map process, so that they can understand how we are conducting our audits and to keep safe. And I'm very thankful for the administration and the campuses for providing all the information requested from us. The only difference, though, is the timing. So it does take a little bit longer, but we are patient enough just to make sure that we are in compliance, and especially with the activity funds in other areas that we look at it. So, and you should have a packet where I presented the internal audit plan that it was already approved back in August. And so there's no changes. We'll continue with the areas that we decided to audit this year. And then on page 26 on your packet, then you will have all the reports that we have been able to complete and the ones that we are gonna start. And actually attendance is starting in January. So those are the other areas that we'll be looking, so that, making sure that we have the correct funding. And so which is right now is very crucial for attendance, and that is the ADA, what Ms. Westbrook was explaining. So those are the areas that I will start in January to review. So I want to make sure that if you read the package, if you had any questions, I'm here to answer you any of the questions that you might have. I did recommend the audit committee that I would like to have a training for the board members in the future, probably January or February when we come back, in terms of what the internal audit responsibilities and activities we have, and in terms of the district and how we conduct our services. So that gives you overall the understanding of our how do we help the district and add value to the district itself. So those are the things that we talked in the audit committee back in November when we met. So obviously the fraud hotline is, we did deliver all the brochures to the schools, the campuses. In page 29, you will see we have received some reports, and obviously it's not about the number, it's really about the awareness. And so just so you know, the hotline is a preventive tool that will help us. And it gives an opportunity to the staff, besides having the common communication, in an addition where they can feel comfortable communicating. So In terms of the training, we are waiting until probably February or April to continue our staff development training for our staff and myself. So at this time, we're focusing on the schools, and only because it's a slow process, is really taking more time than is expected. But that is a normal, and at least we are able to complete it. And so we do use video conference a lot, and we use the documentation, anything that we can have. So it's been different, but we've been doing real good, and especially because of the cooperation of the campus and administration. So if you do not have any questions, I would like to request this item to move to the consent agenda for Tuesday night.
Looks like you're first.
I think you're first.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out how to read this. It's nice that we can see who's
Yes.
I just wanted to kind of ask a very candid question around with the pandemic and the environment that we're in now. When you're talking about internal auditing, I'm sure that has been impacted. Are there areas at risk right now with the environment that we're in?
Well, right now, because of the pandemic, yes, we have a very high risk area, and especially in attendance. And remember that ADA is our #1 funding source. So that is very crucial that we'll have, it's a high risk in that area. The other part is in terms of cash. Obviously, right now, we always try to make sure that everybody understands that less you touch cash, the best will be. And so obviously football activities have been, some been declined and some being conducted. And so those are the things that we pay attention. But mainly IT, which is the IT department, access control that I'm reviewing right now. And that is a very high risk area nowadays. Is in IT and e-school systems. So those are the areas that I have seen that they have the highest risk this year. Unfortunately, I am reviewing IT, access control. So those are the areas that I want to make sure that we focus. However, though, it is taking a long time. #1, because the department itself is just running a 50% capacity. So it's very hard for them to give me all the information. And obviously they have other areas that they need to attend. So like Ms. Westbrook said, the students come first. So I always let them do the campus first and then myself at the end. But thank you for the question. That was a good question.
Ms. Rios, I'm the next question.
Yes.
And I noticed that you're not only having these high-level fraud discussions, but you're also having to do fraud training online with people. So welcome to this Zoom world we're in. I did notice that when you were reporting the analytics for the fraud hotline,
Yes.
quite a bit of this is environmental and safety concerns. So in that case, do you pass them on to Mr. Miranda, or do you go to the Elevate system, or what do you do?
No, we pass it on to Dr. Watson, which is Dr. Watson will pass it on to the person that is, in support of that. But yes, a lot of them, because even for myself in a department, I require everybody to wear a mask all day long. And I know it's very hard for people not to wear a mask. I just want them to be protected. And yes, they're very concerned, but at the same time, Dr. Watson has provided information in terms of what Mr. Miranda has implemented into our district in regards to COVID.
I should point out that you only had 8 people visit.
8 cases.
Go on the fraud hotline. Is that less than previous years?
Well, if you look at it, this is up to November. Last year we had 12.
Okay.
So it's not, the year is not over. So
So you're not overwhelmed with fraud reports is what it is.
Not
Okay.
at this time.
The other question I have is we have a huge investment out there with our students in their Chromebooks
Yes.
and the technology to keep them connected. Is that an area of risk that worries you in the IT department, or is what you're describing different?
And in terms of that will be inventories. And right now, I'm still working with distribution services and capital fixed assets that we're gonna start doing also. But that will be in February. I will start doing the capital fixed assets. And those we are gonna be reviewing at this time with IT. I'm reviewing access control, because is very important that if they providing VPN access, because right now everything is remote, we have to make sure that we have the proper monitoring system for those areas. But in terms of the inventory, yes, in February, I'm gonna start the capital fixed assets, and we have not finished the distribution center either. So those will be part of the inventories. And yes, that is very high risk at this time.
And I know it's going to be a challenge going on to keep them in repair and that sort of thing. But I understand, Mr. Miranda, that you've already been working on that. So I think you've got that under control as much as we can have control at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Rios, I'm wondering, so one of the things that you do that I really appreciate is you provide longitudinal data in all your reports. I'm wondering on page 30, the chart that has the reporting of the number of reports of fraud.
Yes.
Do we have any data, or I don't see data on the number or the percentage of those reports that were substantiated?
Okay, Mr. Adams, that information is provided in the audit committee meetings. And so that's where we go more detailed. And this is just a general aspect. And so if I always tell board members, everybody is welcome to the audit committee meeting if you want to know more in the detailed part. Ms. Newhouse has more details on that area, same as Dr. Watson and Ms. Jenna Gonzalez. So that's why I don't include it in this area, only to give you an idea of how many cases have we been received per year. So that's mainly the information it gives.
I would like to request if my other colleagues are in agreement that we do get that information in some form from the audit committee moving forward.
We'll have to check on that, because when I was part of that audit committee, sometimes it got into HR and
But I'm not asking to violate any
privacy
HR
things. I'm just saying that I think we need legal counsel as we go forward with this, okay?
I'm not expecting us to break any laws, but I think we need insight into what the audit committee is receiving, and we haven't received that in quite some time.
Okay.
As you notice here, we can have that discussion in the next audit committee to make, and also obviously ask Mr. Binkley also in terms of how can we provide that information to you as an overall.
I appreciate that you can have that discussion, but I'm asking that it happen.
Yes.
And I'm reporting that that can happen. If you'll notice on page 26, it gives you a list of the 8 fraud actions that was presented. And yes, we can get you the results of that fraud information.
Yeah, I was looking for really basic information, like what percentage of them were substantiated, which percentage of them were unsubstantiated or turned out to be, a report that we didn't turn anything up.
Right, we're not looking for any HR information or anything like that. We just need to have, we hire the internal auditor as part of our responsibility as a board, as a body. And we need to make sure that we have enough insight so that we can make appropriate decisions. So I'm not looking for names or, anything that would be inappropriate.
One of the areas that on page 26, if you notice that I listed the cases and then I listed a report number. When I list a report number, that is substantiated. It means that we did find something, if that makes sense.
Trustee Durant, are you wanting that quarterly? You wanting that at the end of the year? How often do you want it, or as they come up?
I would leave that up to the lab on how quick you all think it would be appropriate. My first thought is quarterly, but.
Okay, we can do that.
We meet monthly, we can provide that quarterly. Yes.
And I think it speaks to the efficacy of having an auditor, because based on what Ms. Rios just said, all 8 of the reported instances of fraud were substantiated. And that's actually a little bit surprising to me, but I think that's information I'd like to have.
I don't think that's what she was saying. All 8 weren't.
Yeah, it's just one was substantiated out of the 8. Where it says report number, then it has a memorandum. That's the only one that actually was done.
Ms. Rios, what does it mean where it says completed? Does that mean you completed an audit of that particular incident, or
So we have a process when we receive the fraud hotline cases. Number one, I'm the first one who reviews it and make sure that it is a financial fraud. If it is a financial fraud, then I do the investigation completely. If it is not financial, and sometimes let's say, for example, for COVID issues, then it's forward to Dr. Watson that he will forward to the other areas. And the only thing I do is a follow up, because I do have to make sure that I close the case and with NAVIX, which is our third party company, to make sure that if he already took care of it and we have the information, and it's just mainly a complaint, because sometimes they use the hotline sometimes for complaining, but then again, we do have a whole concept that we close the case. So when I say completed, it means we have gone through the process.
So I misunderstood you, Ms. Rios. So now reading this, that means only one of the 8 was substantiated. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Rios, do you have any recommendations for us?
Well, number one, I would like to recommend that number one, that we create an audit committee charter, and I will help you to do that. That way they know what is your responsibility as the audit committee member. And then the second recommendation is that to have a training overall to all the board members to understand what is our mission. Even though I do put it in if you go into the website, I put the mission in what I'm here for. But number one, I need the board to support me in all of the areas. Like any internal auditors, we do have a high risk of being fired pretty soon. So we have to make sure that, ethically we report no matter how difficult the areas are. So those are the things, that's why we need your support. So it will be a good idea to have all board members to be trained, and I can provide that training in the future to understand because I need to understand how do you want me to communicate it? Because there was no, since when I started the internal audit, there was no process of how you were presenting it until I came in and said, I need to report you at least twice a year. And this is why we do the mid-year and the year end, so that we have all that information provided to you. Because as a board members, you do have to approve them. My reports in all the projects that we have completed the entire year, including the audit plan, which you approved back in August.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
If we
you.
have no other questions, we will submit this for next week on the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Just thank you so much for finding a way to adapt your mission to the current circumstances. It's just amazing to me how flexible and really professional you are. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
As we continue, for our next item, I'd like to recognize our General Counsel, Jeremy Brinkley.
Good evening. I have one board policy for you this evening, and this is a policy that came out of our governance committee. And if you'll turn to page 34 and 35 with me, we'll talk about it very quickly. The board policy is BDB Local, Board Internal Organization and Internal Committees. And essentially, the recommendation is to add some language to this policy to align the policy with current practice. And what this will do is expand the standing committees that are allowed from only the committee of the whole, but to also include the board governance committee, the audit committee, and the equity committee, allowing, basically pulling those into board policy and allowing them to continue as standing committees. And at this point, I just ask if there are any questions.
And this doesn't prohibit our board president from adding ad hoc committees as needed.
Correct. Yeah, the board president has the ability to create an ad hoc committee for any particular purpose and assign trustees to that committee and have them do their task and bring back the result.
Thank you, Mr. Rand. And as you know, we do have an additional ad hoc committee that is meeting now, and that's our Superintendent Evaluation Committee. They are in the process of meeting now. So we do have one. Thank you.
Organizing a meeting.
Okay. And with that, I would just ask that it be added to the consent agenda for Tuesday for first reading, and then we'll of course do second reading next month to enter it into policy.
Thank you. That we will do. So for our next item, as we move right along, I would like to recognize our Chief of Innovation and Communications, Tiffany Dunn Oldfield. Good evening, Ms. Oldfield.
Good evening, President Newhouse, Dr. Watson, esteemed members of the board. We have a very brief presentation, but after Ms. Westbrook's presentation, I hope you're excited to hear where this is on page 36 of your binder, but this is the acceptance of grant funds at a little over $1 million. And so with that, I'm going to ask Dr. Hinojosa to kick up our presentation. So these two grants, which were primarily, it was a cross-functional group, but primarily written by our Research and Student Success Department, is wonderful in bringing some additional funds into the district. If you go on to slide 2, there we go, to slide 2. So just really quickly, so in the development and the writing of the grants that secured this money for the district, we are moving the project management of these grants under the very capable hands of Dr. Hinojosa, our special projects team. So we're going to be talking this evening high level, just giving you a little update on the grants that we're asking you to accept, these two grants for more than $1 million in grant funds combined that are focused on 6 participating campuses. And we'll walk you through that. These two grants focused on these 6 campuses, unique opportunity to transform some of our underperforming campuses. And as you'll see and you hear from both Deborah Broughton and Sharon Carpenter, the directors overseeing the project management of the implementation of these grants, they give us countless opportunities to impact student outcomes. And with that, I'll pass the floor over to Dr. Hinojosa. You're muted, Lupita. You're still muted, Lupita.
Okay, can you
Yes,
hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay, excellent, good. And can you see the presentation? I'm sorry, I'm having
It's up right there. It's
It
perfect
is
right now.
perfect.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm sorry. So yes, as you just heard, the district applied for and was awarded two very important grants that totaled over the $1 million. And we as the district sought these two grants because the intent and the critical components align to our Lift 6 middle school pedagogy. As a result of these grants, the what is called the School Action Fund Grant, SAF, as well as the Additional Day School Year Grant, lovingly called at the state level the ADSI grant, we will be able to re-envision and transform 6 of our underperforming schools in Spring ISD, and thus producing stronger and more equitable student outcomes. The acceptance of this grant will kick off our work. So tonight, we will share the critical components of each grant and a high-level overview of the planning work that is currently being designed to transform these 6 underperforming schools. And so what's really unique about these two grants and the way we as a district are approaching them is a very unique team approach to redesign and transform these schools. We know that to transform underperforming schools, it's going to take very committed leaders, school leaders, very committed teachers, and most importantly, those key stakeholders, our parents and our community that's going to be engaged in giving us this input. And of course, with the support of the district. And ultimately, as you can see in this graphic, the core of our work is our goal to produce stronger, more equitable outcomes for all students. And at this time, I'm going to introduce our director of our first grant, the School Action Fund Grant, Ms. Deborah Broughton.
Thank you, Dr. Hinojosa. Good evening, President Newhouse, trustees, Superintendent Watson, cabinet members, colleagues, and community. I am Deborah Broughton, Project Director of the School Action Fund Grant. Dr. Hinojosa stated earlier that we have reason to be proud, and we do. Our team applied for competitive School Action Fund grants in June, and we were awarded the grants in September. I am pleased to share a brief overview of those grants. 4 campuses that you will see were selected based on similar demographics, accountability status, and feeder pattern. We saw an opportunity to impact a feeder pattern by adding these 4 schools to the grant, and all 4 schools were awarded the grants. Grants totaled $840,000. The grant provides funding for schools to spend 1 full year planning bold actions to improve student academic outcomes. The planning process is facilitated by a vendor that is vetted by TEA, and our vendor for the blended learning grant with the School Action Fund is a company called Transcend Education. So the TEA has a process for the School Action Fund grant, and there are some very specific requirements that are listed. The TEA monitors this process through a fidelity of implementation fit tool, as they would call it. It's based on these 6 requirements. All campuses who participate in the redesign plan must include these requirements in the grants. First, they must be aligned to the Effective Schools Framework. The ESF, as it is called, you heard about last month in the targeted improvement plans. The framework is used frequently in the TEA transformational schools models, and it is part of this grant as well. Secondly, the second curriculum, high quality curriculum, is also necessary for this grant. It must include a strong diagnostic, high dosage tutoring, and the grant should include some form of extended day or year. And finally, it must address our mental and health and social resiliency of our scholars. The campus plans at the end of this year will be evaluated. And the schools that qualify will be eligible to apply for a continuation grant, which could be up to $250,000 for each school as well. So we're hoping that we will definitely qualify for that and be able to apply at the end of 2021. The grant started in early October with a TEA webinar, and then we met our TA partner. And since that time, it's been fast and furious. This is truly an innovative redesigned model of school improvement, and aligning it with the Innovation and Equity Department is something that we've become excited about. I truly believe that the continuity of our teamwork should improve planning, internal alignment, communication, and just overall improve our district administration of grants. Our campuses are certainly entering uncharted territory, but with clarity and support, the journey can and it should be very, very exciting. When successful, our scholars and families will experience positive academic outcomes and social emotional growth. I am pleased to share this information with you tonight. This concludes my brief presentation. Thank you for your time, and I hope you know a little bit more about our School Action Fund grant. Now at this time, Ms. Carpenter will come and she will share more about the ADSI grant.
Ms. Carpenter, are you on mute? We can't hear you. There you go. There you go. No, we can't hear you now.
We can't.
Do you want to go down to the three little, that's not on here. If you go to your mute button, or Lupita, do you want to present this part from Ms. Carpenter?
Sure. Are you, Ms. Carpenter, you want to try one more time? If not, I can.
If you go to your mute button, Ms. Carpenter, on the bottom left corner and you hit the up arrow, you might want to just look at what your microphone is. There might be, you need to switch it so that you can be heard. Your left bottom up arrow on the little microphone that's down there and switch it.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can. Great.
Murphy's Law, whatever can go wrong will go wrong. And if your name is Sharon, frequently it does. So anyway, thank you, Ms. Broughton, and good evening, President Newhouse, Superintendent Dr. Watson, trustees, cabinet colleagues, and the community. Again, my name is Sharon Carpenter, and I'm the project director of the Additional Day School Year, or ADSI grant. And I'm proud to stand before you representing our work group teams in our participating sister campuses, Clark Primary and Clark Intermediate Elementary Schools. And I'd like to take just a few minutes to share several slides providing details about the Additional Day grant. And so these two campuses were selected based on similar demographics, accountability status, and feeder patterns. And grants were written for each school, and both were awarded a planning amount of $100,000 for a total of $200,000 for both campuses to spend 1 year planning, just like with the others, bold actions to improve student academic outcomes. And this planning year is facilitated by the vetted TEA technical assistance provider, Engaged to Learn. So with the implementation of the Additional Day program, we are reimagining the school year with 210 instructional days. And yes, I did say 210 days, but within those 210 days, students, staff, and community will reap the benefits of the ADSI implementation priorities of reimagining the job of teaching, accelerating and enriching learning, and strengthening whole child supports. The key components of the ADSI program include building in additional teacher planning and learning time, where teachers will have additional time daily to participate in professional development opportunities, coaching and planning sessions, data review, and other learning sessions, which will be differentiated according to the needs of the individual teachers. And ADSI will provide the platform where students will experience hands-on rigorous experience and engaging activities such as robotics and coding, drumline, dance, and more, as well as it will provide the venue through which the Clarks will build stronger parent and community ties as we work to develop the child's academically as well as socially and emotionally. In other words, by adding the additional 30 days, ADSI program will 1, afford students more learning time, 2, teachers will have more days to provide instruction, and address the student needs. And 3, student outcomes will be stronger and more equitable. And as previously stated, the innovation and equity team is excited about our transformational work. And we believe that coming together as a team will make us stronger and more effective. That concludes my presentation, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Carpenter. And so to our board tonight, we provided you a high-level overview, an understanding of the components of this grant, but most importantly, a high-level overview as we begin planning. And so we want to come back and provide you updates as we move through the planning spring semester and ultimately implementation this coming school year. So again, we are asking that you place the acceptance of these 2 grants, and you have what we call the actual NOGAs, that information in your packet. You're welcome to review it, and we ask that you place this in the acceptance agenda item so that we can accept these funds and begin the work. Thank you.
I'd like to just comment and say congratulations and thank you for working hard to ensure these additional funds for our students. I took a minute and actually Googled Transcend Education. I love what they do in engaging and partnering with school districts, and they seem to have a really good, successful engagement with the school districts. And so I'm really excited about it, and I just wanted to thank all of you for your hard work.
And I have a question about seeing the particulars of these. I assume that when we go into the campus improvement plans for these schools, they will be citing where they're using these funds. Is that correct?
Absolutely. That's the work and that Ms. Broughton and Ms. Carpenter are doing with the district leadership team, as well as the campus and the teachers, what we plan for in our targeted improvement plans, and then working with this partner vendor, as Ms. Durant was talking about. We're really looking to redesign and transform these schools to positively impact, the academic success of the students. But yes, you will see this in their targeted improvement plan. And there's a direct alignment, as Ms. Broughton talked about, that the effective school framework that we've heard about last month.
And just to be, Ms. Broughton and Ms. Carpenter will work really closely with Don Oliver, who I know that you was just recently presenting to you on campus improvement plans, targeted improvement plans, and will work and meet very frequently with her, very close. The 2 teams will be collaborating on these projects.
And I'm excited to see the results from that. And one of the things that I like most is in their mission statement, they say they support communities in creating and spreading extraordinary, equitable learning opportunities. And I really appreciate that. And it aligns with our pathway and our mission currently.
I just have one more concern. When I was looking at the key components, there is addressing mental health and social resiliency, terribly important. But sometimes in my experience as a teacher, and then later with my own children and grandchildren, I really appreciated when there was a diagnostic assessment of physical health. And I know that we already assess for hearing and vision, correct, in our district yearly?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Yeah. There's just sometimes that there can be, it struck me on the graduation walk one time that a young student who was not appearing in class, she had been ill, and we had not kept up with that. And I'm very concerned about, because I believe you have a healthy mind and a healthy body. So just, I'm asking for in addition to that, to be sure. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ms. Dr. Jensen. And it is part of both of the grants. And, we're really fortunate with your support that we do have a strong Department of Mental Health and Related Services. I do know from Dr. Zimmerman's work, they do have a screening instrument that's used. I know that our planning committee, as we work with these 6 campuses, it will be part of the work that we need to address through the grant is the social emotional needs of the students. So we'll also be partnering with Dr. Zimmerman and her team.
I just wanted to echo my colleagues. This is really impressive. And as a member of this community, I am deeply appreciative of your efforts to be proactive about making improvements in our schools where it's needed most. I really appreciate this. So thank you to all of you.
Any other questions, concerns? Not? Thank you to the presenters and thank you, Ms. Dunn Oldfield. As we continue again for our next item, I'd like to recognize our Executive Chief of District Operations, Mark Miranda.
Thank you, President Newhouse, Dr. Watson, members of the board. I have 2 items beginning on page 43 of your packet. This first item is a high school boundary discussion. You'll recall that last February, the decision was made to put the last phase of our planned attendance boundary changes on hold. We would like to talk a little bit tonight about our next steps. And for that, I would like to pass it over to Dr. Watson.
Thank you, Mr. Miranda. Board of Trustees, one of the things that we did this past year is we had a discussion regarding putting a hold on the boundary. And little did we know that we would be facing a pandemic right now. And so one of the things, based upon what Ms. Westbrooks presented to you earlier regarding the fluctuation of our enrollment, consequently impacting our ADA, and what's next, we're recommending that we continue to hold. There's more information that we're going to need based upon who's actually going to be back this next fall. And so this past year, we asked you all to hold and to go out to get more information. We had more information meetings scheduled to happen right after spring break this past year, but we weren't able to have those because of the pandemic. And so we think it would be premature to go and implement a boundary for next year and ask parents to survey them, to survey the parents again, right when we're surveying them so much during the middle of a pandemic. And so we would like to wait and then get with our demographer. Many of you all that have driven past the stadium, you can see now that all that land is cleared. They're building homes all around the stadium on all the sides by Bailey and Burchett, as well as by Wales. There's a lot of new developments. And so we'd like to gather more information and to come back to you when there's more information known, either later this spring or next fall, after we actually see what the enrollment is, and then provide you all with a recommendation. But we think it would not be in the best interest of the community right now to go push this in the middle of a pandemic.
And we aren't seeing any issues or concerns with our existing boundaries, or there's nothing we need to address.
Well, I think the only thing to address is this past year, I think during our conversation, there were some families from DeWitt that thought they were going to be going to Decaney, that when we held, they weren't too happy about not being able to go to Decaney, which is a good thing. We did allow them to go ahead and go and to provide them transportation. And so administration is already with the recommendation that we will continue to provide those kids with the transportation throughout their 4 years, so their parents don't have to wait for that. But we would not be doing that for any new kids, because we're going to be able to let parents know in plenty enough time regarding for next year.
Okay, thank you.
I had personal experience with that situation, and I want to thank you so much for supporting the kids.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. For my second item, if you would join me on page 44, this is an interlocal contract between the Harris County Department of Education and Spring ISD for the 21st Century Community Learning Centers. We call it the 21st Century Program. Just a little bit of background on this. Spring ISD currently has actually 11 campuses in 21st Century programs. 10 of those campuses are a part of the Spring ISD grant. One campus, Bammel Middle School, is a part of an interlocal contract between Harris County Department of Education and Spring ISD. This contract renewal, this interlocal agreement, is concerning Bammel Middle School's 21st Century Program. And so just to give you a little bit more background, the grant goals for this program are to improve academic performance in math, reading, language arts, and science, to improve student attendance, to decrease disciplinary infractions, referrals, and enrichment programs that are focused on science, math, arts, and college readiness. We have been able to serve over 290, about 290 students in this program at Bammel Middle School. This is actually the 5th year of the program that we're going to be approving tonight, hopefully, or approving on Tuesday, hopefully. Bammel Middle School has achieved in prior years both their parental involvement in student attendance goals for all 4 years previous. And during the 3rd year was awarded a 2-year extension of the 21st Century Grant based on the program performance data. So we're very excited about this program and eager to bring it to you for approval once again. I'd be happy to entertain any questions, or if not, I thank you very much.
Well, I like the flexibility that this program has allowed our students to continue to participate, you know, after school and during other hours. And so I'm excited to see that we're continuing to engage with the Harris County Department of Ed.
I think, Mr. Miranda, we're all familiar with the project director, Mrs. Taylor.
Yes.
And the outstanding work that she has been doing with the 21st Century Program the last few years. I hate this past year, we did not have an opportunity to all gather at Bammel Middle School and see the work that the students have done for the year, this past year. But we have seen them in the past 3 years, and they do an outstanding presentation at the end of the year of the work that they do in the schools.
Absolutely.
So we're happy that we can continue with this program.
Thank you.
Thank you. So as we continue tonight, we would like to again recognize our Chief Financial Officer, Ann Westbrooks.
Thank you, President Newhouse. And if you all will turn with me on about page 76 of the binder, this is our popular annual financial report. So in November, we brought the comprehensive annual financial report. That is an audited financial statement with lots of pronouncements and lots of technical details that are required to be included in that document, thus the name comprehensive. This document has become, it's called the Popular Annual Financial Report, and it has become quite popular. And that's because it's a much more reader-friendly, easily understood version of that CAFR that we brought back in November. So there's no action. We just like to always make sure that you're aware of it and that you have a copy of it. This year, we did do something a little different, or we're planning to do something a little different than years past. In years past, we would mail out about 10,000 of these printed copies to our community. But this year, in collaboration with the communications team and the financial services team, we've created somewhat of a movie version of this document where you can just press play and it'll walk you through the document, and it'll kind of take you through it on a little bit of a journey through the financial condition of Spring ISD. And so our plan is to leverage our social media campaign to make sure that all of our community members are aware of it, give them a link to it so that they can access that movie and hopefully sit through and listen to that or read through that information. So that will be available on our website starting next week. And our communications team is going to rev up the campaign of making sure that our community members are aware that it's there and available.
Do you know how long it is?
How long?
How many minutes?
I think it's just a couple of minutes. It's not very long. And you can skip through if you don't want to just let it play. But let it play. It's nice. Good info. Okay, so that's our first item. The next item.
Ms. Westbrook's?
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to tell you how much I love this report. I must be one of those people who's appreciating the clarity in the communication, but I decided it's because, you know, your right brain is like mapping visual and your left brain is a sequential numerical. And you just buzz all parts of my brain with this report. It was, I'm not usually excited about reading financial reports.
Glad
Should I have admitted that? But also, I noticed that you go compare this year to the 2 previous years. So there's lots. Winfred, you're going to be happy about this one because also, I think that some of your pie charts are just wowers. Like that, 88% of our budget is payroll. It just really shows where the money is going.
Yes.
And just beautifully written and presented. I assume the communications department helped you quite a bit with this.
Absolutely. Their graphic designer, Georgina, and Garza, I believe is her last name. She does an excellent job, and she works alongside Susie Morales, who is the director of finance on the financial services team. And they came up with this idea this year, and it's like, it's a little different. What do you think? We're like, go for it. You know, make it neat, make it easy to understand. So communications has a huge part of this.
Tiffany, please pass on my compliments because this is such a professional, beautiful presentation. And
I will, and it's Georgina Garza. She's amazing to Ann. She's a real resource for us here in the district. So we love her.
I kind of wanted to piggyback on that because I'm always asking what's our communication plan, and I think we do it. In my opinion, we do an amazing job with the finances that we're entrusted with our community and taxpayers. And we need to tell that story. And I'm always asking, what's our communication plan? How are we going to get the word out? And I'm really excited about the video. That's why I asked how long it was, because if it's too long, they'll tune out. But if it's short, that's really good. And I just also want to commend Tiffany's department on what an amazing job, and then getting us a video around finance is exciting. So I'm looking forward to seeing it.
And I love the apple, the little apple. That's a graph. That's just the cutest thing ever. Okay, the next couple of items that we have are our monthly reports that we look at. And I believe the first one is this month's taxpayer refunds, which is on page 77. Ask if there are any questions on the list.
Oh, but it would be fun to remember a previous trustee, Mel Smith. He always would look at these and say, well, my name isn't on the list. So it's okay. So.
That is so true. Okay, and then the last report for this evening is on page 80, and it's our monthly report of cooperative purchases that were over $50,000.
So I did have another finance question, and I missed the opportunity when you mentioned it earlier. I've been concerned about how we are doing from a financial perspective. You talked about the additional equipment we've had to buy and the plexiglass we didn't budget for. But what's happening from our operations perspective with the enhanced amount of cleaning that's having to be done, and that staff, are they being worked overtime? Are we having to bring in additional resources? Can we just kind of find out what's happening and where we are with that, and if we need to turn some attention to maybe getting some additional dollars in that area?
Well, first of all, everybody's been very supportive about the need for the enhanced cleaning and the different things that we've had to do. We have rearranged some of our budget priorities to go into the direction of the disinfectants and so forth. And so some of those strategies have taken place. Adding some additional dollars and moving some of those around for that has also helped. We have been doing a little bit of overtime on some Saturday deep cleans that we are doing, and we're getting a lot of good support from Ann and from the staff and different people to be able to do that. And so it is something that we're monitoring very carefully and keeping a very close eye on. But you'll also see that there are some offsets because we don't have our buildings that are full of people at the same time. So there are some offsets on things like paper goods, for example, that we would be going through at a higher clip. And we're not necessarily going through at that high clip at the moment. So there's a little bit of balance from that and some redirecting of funds to different areas. And so far, that's how we've been able to handle things at the moment. But it's definitely something that we're keeping an eye on.
I think that deep cleaning is critical, and I think we're gonna see some spikes over the next few months, especially with the holiday contact with people and coming back after the first of the year. And I just want to make sure that we're okay in that area, and if there's any additional attention we need to be turning in that direction.
And can you and Mark just in general talk about the distribution center and just about the supply that we have in terms of cleaning supply and PPE?
Yes, and so that is a daily operation of getting the PPE out to the campuses and checking our inventory levels. And we have about 6 months of data now, so we're getting a little bit more of a better handle on what we need and how quickly we're going to need it. And so that's helping us with keeping our stock at the optimal level, not buying too much, but also not having a moment where we may not have something that we need. So it's just ongoing. Our DC team, Philip Ellison, that's over supply procurement and supply chain services, has been knee deep in watching the inventory levels and talking back with me about how we're replenishing. And it's all just a balancing act on, we could spend $100,000 now, or we could spend 30 and then watch it and order at this point. So it's just trying to find that balance and that perfect reorder point that just about the time that we get it together, the pandemic will be over. But it is a constant monitoring and just trying to keep things on hand. And, the supply chain as a whole across the country is really slowed down. So we're getting vendors every single day that are emailing myself, they're emailing Dr. Watson, they're emailing Philip, and they're saying, oh, we have all these supplies together are ready to ship. And so we'll call them and say, okay, well, we need this. Oh, well, we only have 5, So it's been a challenge. It's been a challenge. Yes. Okay. There are no more questions, President Newhouse. That is the last item I have on page 80, the list of cooperative purchases.
Thank you, Ms. Westbrook. The board will now recess this open session and convene in a closed meeting in accordance with Texas Open Meeting Act, Section 551.071, Section 551.072, Section 551.074, and Section 551.076. No voting will take place in the closed meeting. Any action the board wishes to take as a result of discussions in the closed meeting will take place after the board reconvenes in open session. The time is now 8:32 p.m. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. We will have a short closed meeting in the same room. We will now reconvene this work session of the Board of Trustees. There's no other items on tonight's agenda, so I will now entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting.
Madam President, I move we adjourn.
Second. It's been moved by Winfred Adams, second by Justine Durant, to adjourn our meeting. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. The motion carries unanimously. There's no further business. This meeting is officially adjourned at 9:23 p.m.